This is your Wall Street wake-up call. Deutsche Bank shares plunging after Germany's government insists it won't bail out the bank over the $14 billion fine it faces from the U.S. Justice Department. And with me now to talk more about this is James Hughes, the chief market strategist at GKFX based in London. So James, let's be clear. Deutsche Bank saying it will negotiate this fine lower, but the government saying it won't bail out Deutsche Bank. Was that a surprise to you? Because other banks were slammed with higher fees stemming from the financial crisis and they didn't need a bailout.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of surprising points around this. I think what's initially important is the fact that Deutsche Bank have come out this morning and they've said they have not approached the government at all for any sort of funds. But of course, when you see that they've only put around $6 billion aside for any litigation costs that they may have, and that this fine is now looking at it like it's going to be around $14 billion, there is a massive differential there that needs to be found somewhere. As you say, Deutsche Bank do say that they're going to pay a lot less than that, but still, the money just isn't there for Deutsche Bank at the moment. And it is kind of a surprise that Angela Merkel and the German government have been so strict on the fact that they're not going to bail out any of the banks, especially Deutsche Bank. But again, we have to remember one of the situations within this is that under European law now, under the ECB and directives brought in by the ECB, they can't get government bailout funds legally from the German government. So there's big issues surrounding this and about where this goes. I mean, Deutsche Bank have come out and said how strong they still feel their position is, and they think they're not going to pay this big fine. And that's the big thing. They don't think they're going to end up paying $14 billion. They think it's going to be a lot less than that.
And this is just the latest example of a sort of a rift between Europe and U.S. relations. Obviously, we had the EU's decision to force Ireland to have Apple pay them $14 billion in taxes. We had, the EU find that Airbus was receiving subsidies, putting Boeing at a competitive disadvantage. And now we have the U.S. fining Deutsche Bank. What does this mean for U.S.-EU relations?
Yeah, I mean, it has been particularly fractious recently, and of course we know that there's going to be a lot more of these types of stories. We already know that Google is under investigation in terms of European authorities, and the Apple story, of course, is one which is going to rumble on for a long period of time. And even if we look at this current deal, that's the current situation with Deutsche Bank, there's going to be, we're probably looking at more in terms of fines. Deutsche Bank currently think that $14 billion will be a lot less, but there's still a lot of other areas that haven't been investigated yet, and a lot of other issues that we still expect to be added onto that. So I think there's more going to come from this, and I think this issue just grows and grows and grows. I don't think it's necessarily something which is going to affect longer-term business deals or longer-term business relations, but it's very much a case of stamping down on a lot of these issues that have been in place for such a long time. If we look at the likes of Apple and more of those tax deals, these are deals that have been in place for quite a long time that are now all being brought out in the wash.
And now, speaking of the long term, what's your take on Deutsche Bank stock, just quickly as we run out of time? Because aside from this, we also have low to negative interest rates across the globe and no sign of that ending.
Yeah, I mean, we have to look at the fact that their shares are down incredibly badly for year to date. So there's a lot of downside risk, and this is why this story gets so much traction. Is because when there's so much downside pressure and selling pressure on the share price, this story is confounded and made worse and worse. So I think there's still a lot of negativity coming out in terms of that share price, and I don't see that changing anytime soon, unless there is a huge difference in the amount that Deutsche Bank have to pay in terms of these fines. But we don't necessarily think there is going to be such a big difference. So in terms of the longer term, I think we have to be looking at more negativity, not just Deutsche Bank-wise, but European banking stocks and the fear around it.
All right, we'll be watching how this plays out. James Hughes from GKFX in London. James, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm Scott Gamm, and you're watching The Street.